Today, we witness an epic showdown between helicopters from all eras and the mighty coastal fleet, an experiment to see how well both can do without their guided missiles, to seeing the wrath of their full capabilities. From the legendary Hueys of Vietnam to the sleek Apache gunships of modern times, these airborne behemoths will engage in a battle of historic proportions against the warships that once ruled the seas. Who will emerge victorious in this clash of the titans? Today, we find out. First round, HELIS vs. Coastal Fleet will be tested without the use of their guided missiles in an even 18 vs. 18 match to see who will win. The second round will make changes based on the outcome of round 1, and our last round will entail the full combined force of BLUEWATER and Coastal Fleet vs. HELIS in an all-out full capabilities battle. Our participants got to choose what they wanted to test out on both sides. Let's see how round 1 goes. When looking at our heli participants, they have the use of their non-guided rockets, which will be their best weapons against the ships, but they're going to want to keep their distance, use their maneuverability to hopefully steer away from any potential oncoming shells, or use any surrounding hills to pop up, fire, and then retreat back behind cover until being able to restock their ammo. And nothing like a dummy AI aircraft carrier wipe out almost half your team just trying to get into battle. We did let those that got wiped out respawn, as that just wasn't really fair. The Coastal Fleet participants, on the other hand, are more exposed in the open waters with maybe very little protection using the bridge or other large obstacles like the non-playable aircraft carrier, port cranes, or larger cargo ships if small enough to hide behind. Coastal Fleet team has completely stocked up on the time fuse shells, which are going to be their best bet. Those proximity explosions having a good impact here, and most of these rounds will have about 400, maybe 600 grams of explosive mass. Not a ton, but it's not going to take much to knock out one of these helicopters from the sky. Non-guided rockets were seen getting about half their hits off on each ship they targeted, and depending on the size of the vessel, it could take anywhere from one set of rockets to take a ship out, if small, or 2 to 3 sets on more larger ships. Participants can either allow the AI to do the targeting and aiming for them, or they can manually do it themselves, which we let the participants choose what they wanted to test out. This player used a guided missile, which I didn't even know Coastal Fleet had in War Thunder, but we let this heli participant respawn since it wasn't allowed. However, you saw the effectiveness of it and maybe a taste of what the heli team will expect to come for round 3. Through with already 9 helicopters shot down and only 4 coastal ships sunk. The majority of the helicopter team dying to being too close and exposed to the Coastal Fleet's weapons, maybe underestimating their ability here. The heli side that has survived is keeping their distance or using surrounding hills to their benefits, which is helping them out greatly, but it is making it harder for them to aim those non-guided rockets, causing less than half of them to hit most of their targets. coastal fleets being fired didn't seem to have much an effect when exploding nearby. They had to get a direct hit. And I don't know what was going on with War Thunder's system. But when researching this, modern helicopters have a lot going for them to help protect them against things like these outdated time-fused shells, which more modern coastal fleet doesn't really have. And War Thunder, I had found that any ship is from around 1970s or prior. The modern helicopters have things like electronic warfare, EW systems, or flares or chaffs, armor plating, maneuverability, other countermeasures to kind of help them and help them protect themselves against these time-fused shells. Round 2 is almost up with 2 minutes left and not looking like this will be a match of who killed all opponents, but who killed more. It didn't help with how much time it took for the helicopters to restock on their rockets, but it looked like at the beginning the coastal fleet was really winning, but now things have turned around to more of the helicopter side. Helicopters won round 1, and because of that, participants decided to invite up to rank 2 BLUEWATER ships to join the coastal fleet team to see if they could still win. BLUEWATER ships not only being bigger, but also having larger guns around 120mm to 3 kilograms explosive mass time-fused shells compared to the larger 76mm 5 to 600 gram explosive mass time-fused shells most of the coastal fleet only had. Let's see if the outcome changes in round 2. This frigate spawning closer to the helicopters all alone is almost helpless as they rain down their rockets before the ship can return fire. See the water splashing around the ship where the rockets are missing. The loud bang you just heard was from the sound of one of the BLUEWATER's 120mm 3 kilogram time-fused shells exploding next to the helicopter, and you can see in the bottom left the damage it's inflicted. The coastal fleet ships were not seen causing such damage unless it was a direct hit. Seeing how much more effective the BLUEWATER ships are having here. War Thunder's replay system wasn't being the most friendliest to work with, as when I was trying to get farther away with views, anything past 6 kilometers wouldn't even show on the screen. Some heli participants that learned the hard way in round 1 are now seeing trying to keep a further distance and use more of the hills. Rockets from the helicopters would inflict on the BLUEWATER ships was much less compared to the coastal boats. Most of the heli players' strategy seems to be focused on targeting the bigger ships first. To mention in this round there's actually 25 versus 25. We're about halfway through with 8 helicopters left and 16 ships left. Can the heli team make a comeback like they did the previous round? This wasn't one of the helis counted, but this player for some reason would keep spawning into space, float around for a bit, die, and then come crashing down on Earth somewhere. I I asked him if there was a way he could aim to try and crash into ships, but he said no, which makes sense. The last of the heli players definitely seem to have their strategy down quite well, using the hills as mentioned or keeping their distance, which seemed to have made it nearly impossible for the coastal fleet ships to do much. Some players that were doing this were found still getting knocked out of the sky by the blue water ships, which out of this mix there's about 8 blue water ships left. Ships at rank 1 and 2 primarily consist of destroyers or light cruisers and seem to take heli players anywhere from around 5 to 6 sets of rockets before being able to save them. It'll be interesting to see how battleships will do in the next round. Down to the last minute with 2 helis left and 5 ships. Score to 0 helicopters left and 4 ships left. In our final round, we will now let both sides use their full capabilities and allow all ranks of coastal fleet and blue water ships to see what the outcome will be. We had seen earlier that the coastal fleet ships have some guided missiles, and now the helicopters will be able to use their guided missiles as well. Let's see who will win in this last round. Thank you. Already the guided missiles from the heli team accurately hitting the ships with ease, and I thought it was funny seeing how the crew looked like they were leisurely going down with the ship with the aircraft carrier issue again. Helicopters that didn't have guided missiles seemed to not have a chance when it came to these battleships and cruisers, just wiping them out of the sky with ease. Even the helicopter players that kept themselves at greater distances to better survive did not stand nearly as much of a chance facing time-fused shells up to 283 millimeters with 21.49 kilograms explosive mass from Germany's World War II Scharnhorst, for example. Spectator mode wouldn't show where non-guided rockets would be in previous rounds, but you can see here how many guided missiles are fired from these helicopters trying to take out their enemies. How it always seemed to be the tail of the helicopter that would go and almost nothing else. Incoming coastal fleet missile can be seen. I can't imagine the G-force felt when seeing many of these helicopters losing their tails, which caused them to spin around uncontrollably. I'm just glad War Thunder didn't add throw-up hitting windshields as part of its damage model, because that's probably what I would have ended up doing if spinning around so much. It was hard to tell if the missiles were doing much to the larger top-tier battleships. The guided missiles seemed to catch them on fire from time to time, but already some of these sea monsters getting hit with 3 to 4 sets and still seem to be okay. And here comes our friend falling from space again. The ship that seemed to be doing the best so far is the 1960s HMS Tiger, with knocking out 4 helicopters this far into the battle. The round is a little more than halfway over, with 6 ships sunk and 7 helicopters down. There have been several instances of battles between helicopters and coastal ships specifically, especially during naval conflicts in the later half of the 20th century. One notable example is in the Falklands War, fought between Argentina and the United Kingdom in 1982. During this conflict, British helicopters were used to attack and sink several Argentinian naval vessels, including the cruiser General Belgrano and the destroyer ARA Santissima Trinidad. In another example, during the 1991 Gulf War, U.S. Navy helicopters attacked and destroyed several Iraq patrol boats and other naval vessels that were attempting to harass U.S. and coalition ships in the Persian Gulf. These battles demonstrate the effectiveness of helicopters as a naval weapon, especially in their ability to deliver precision strikes against enemy ships. However, it's worth noting that coastal defense ships are typically armed with heavily armed guns and missiles, and can pose a significant threat to helicopters that are operating in close proximity, as we've actually seen in this battle. Therefore, the outcome of any such battle would depend on a variety of factors, including the specific capabilities and tactics of the opposing forces. And finishing the last round with 11 ships sunk and 11 helicopters destroyed. Wow, it ended up being a tie. Hope you all enjoyed this vid, and thank you to all those that helped. You all stay cool and keep flying or sailing.